Since 1992, Genesis House has been helping real people heal from addiction on their private recovery campus in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. Their family-owned program is accredited by the Joint Commission and offers detox and dual diagnosis treatment in a comfortable and confidential setting. At Genesis House, they focus on treating the underlying causes of addiction. Their comprehensive approach includes psychiatric care, individual and small group therapy, trauma healing techniques, and holistic care including yoga, massage, and animal-assisted therapy. After treatment, their clients enjoy the lifelong support of a nationwide network of Genesis House alumni. Call Genesis House today at 1-800-737-0933 to speak with someone who understands. Visit them on the web at www.genesishouse.net. It's time to start your journey to a long and successful recovery.
Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is brought to you by the Friends in Recovery community, a thriving network of individuals who are fighting back against the stigma of addiction. Join our hosts as they speak up about the real issues of addiction, treatment, and recovery. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your Friends in Recovery.
Welcome, everybody, to the Friends in Recovery podcast. I'm your host, Jersey Ed, along with my two co-hosts, Noontime with Sky and Tiff. And first of all, guys, I'd like to thank Genesis House for their ongoing support of this podcast. Without them, it would be impossible to do. And the other thing, too, about Genesis House, if you're struggling or you need to reach out, give them a call. Look them up, genesishouse.net. Give them a call, see what we do over there. And if you need some help or if you want to talk to somebody, give them a call, send us an email, and support Genesis House because they do definitely support this podcast. So thank you, Genesis House. Before we start, I want to just give you guys the topic. This week's show is a clinical look at step 2 with our really good friend, Jeff Zeizel. He's been on the show before. One quick correction from last week's show. I said we had 3 years, that we turned 3 last week. We turned 4.
I thought so, but I didn't.
4. Okay.
I didn't want to correct you during the show, and then I forgot afterwards.
I didn't know if it was wrong, so I was like, let me just keep my mouth closed.
No,
El cuatro es muy bien.
4 years. So stay tuned for some amazing recovery. Before I bring everybody on and tell everybody about what's going, have a tip and Skylar tell about what's going on. I want to give you guys the literature today, what we're going to be using. I'm going to be reading from the 12 and 12, pages 25 through 30. That's step 2. Skylar is going to use from NA. She's going to use the how and why, the NA workbook, and the basic text. Tiffany will use Life Recovery Workbook and the Big Book, and Jeff is going to use Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. So while we're reading, if you have those books around, just go grab them. Real quick sober shout out to Margot B, September 28th, 2008. That's not this month, obviously, but she sent me a shout out. So Margot, we're going to put you in the contest for
Margot, yay!
End of the month. They're going to give away 2 Genesis House t-shirts that Tiff is holding up right now. The only thing that you have to do is send an email to help@friendsinrecoverypodcast.com. That's help@friendsinrecoverypodcast.com, or comment below with your sober date. It could be this month, it could be the December, whenever. Just send us your sober date. We'll give you a sober shout out no matter what, and we'll enter you into the drawing for the t-shirt. You have to be a large though, because that's all I got. All right. Or you squeeze.
And don't look at that size one. It's the extra large.
Exactly. And the Friends of Recovery websites update real quick, guys. I'll give it to you. I just spoke to our guy who's doing the website, and it's coming along. So we'll have it. But if you need any information right now, go to genesishouse.net under connections, and you'll see all the podcasts. There's a podcast part on there too, and all the meetings. But Tiff, speaking about meetings, you want to tell us a little bit about our meetings?
can I go back to the sober shout out for a minute?
Yeah.
I wanted to give a big sober shout out to our friends over at New Way, especially after we met with Amy. Oh, hold your mug. There you go. Yeah.
Go New Way.
We had an amazing friend visit us when when I was introduced to Amy. Happened to be a ghost. We were in one of the oldest Pillsbury mansions, and as we were sitting in the parlor, Ed said, "Oh, that must have been the smoking room, and that must have been the ladies' wine room or tea room, whatever you want to call it." And as we were sitting there, literally where he pointed out the smoking room, a cloud of smoke, like a little haze, went across the room. And we didn't realize it, like we didn't believe it at first. That Amy and I got up and we were like, whatever, we're gonna look at this. Literally, there was a cloud. It looked like somebody had vaped, that kind of hangs in the air, or when exhale of smoke hangs in the air. It was very, small, narrow. And then they freaked out because I walked through it and it disappeared. So if I start talking crazy, I might be the host of a ghost. So I don't know. Anyway, we can talk about that card later, Sky. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe you should pull my cards
cool,
for today.
It was
We also have Telegram, which we it's like a daily text. You can join our group, and we send out motivational text updates, events, different stuff like that. And we have the Friends in Recovery. Oh, did you say?
I didn't go yet.
Oh, I thought you said go ahead, Scott.
We were still doing a silver shout out.
Good
So
show.
anyway, Sky, do you have any silver shout outs? And then I'll go into the meetings.
That's okay.
Keep coming back. They tell me to just keep coming
coming
back.
It
The
works.
show must go on.
Yeah, that's
All
right.
Okay, so I'll go on with the meetings unless you have a sober shout out.
You're good.
Okay, so our meetings, we do offer twice daily meetings, both at noon at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as well as all of our additional meetings. Like, for example, we have an alumni and friends meeting, which is held at 8:15 on Tuesday night. So we have meetings in addition or on top of the two daily meetings that we have at both noon and 7. And then, of course, I want to mention my big book study, which is the regular 7 o'clock meeting on Fridays. And we have a new meeting that's coming up on Fridays at 7 p.m. So same code, same bat channel, same all of those things for 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's going to be called Celebrate Friends and Recovery. And that meeting is going to be more of a Christian-based meeting. So if that's the type of meeting that you're looking for, you can find it at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time starting March 4th. And so we're looking forward to that. And all of our meetings are listed at genesishouse.net under connections. So if you're looking for any of those regular meetings plus additional meetings, which we have almost every night of the week, we're almost up to 3 meetings a week, guys. Did you realize that? 3 daily meetings a week? Mm-hmm. We're almost there. So anyway, you can find those at genesishouse.net under connections. Now I would like to turn it over to the weather to see with Sky. Noontime with Sky.
Yeah, so there's an app you guys can download. It's called Telegram. And that's where you can get updates and different things we send out. We also
I use Telegraph, remember?
Telegraph.
Yeah.
I thought it was called Telegram.
No, it's Telegram. You're right, Sky.
Oh.
I know.
I'm messing with you.
It was
Oh my
Telegraph.
gosh. Stop messing with her, Ed.
Our listeners love this.
All the listeners love this. Okay,
Right?
Sky. Let me do that over for you. Noontime with Sky.
Also, you want to check out Genesis House Facebook page, and attached to their page is the groups. So you're going to like the Genesis House page, and then you're going to go in the groups and join them. There's a Friends and Recovery community. There is an alumni only group, and there's also a Friends and Recovery Adventures group. So you can get involved with that.
Thank you, Sky. So one thing we didn't mention, the coin challenge, attend any 30 Friends and Recovery meetings and receive the highly sought after Friends and Recovery Zooming Through Recovery coin. comment below. Make sure that you if you have any questions, if you did get the chat coin challenge done, there it is. Tiff is showing it.
Got it. Okay.
And if you want that highly sought after coin, come on out to the meetings, guys. So I think we made it through that part of the show.
No, we didn't. I have to tell you something.
What did you
I
do?
just plugged my microphone in. So all those sound checks that you guys were doing with me earlier that said I sounded great, my microphone was not plugged in until 1 second ago.
That's okay. You sound much better
Well,
now.
that's probably why you sounded so good.
Yeah. That stuff, the behind the scenes stuff.
What is happening today?
It's the ghost. It's the ghost, Tiff.
It is. Don't say that, Ed. I'm really freaked out about that.
Ghost, guys, comment below. And
Yeah, right.
Ghost.
You
Should have,
guys, it
should
is.
Tiff have walked through the ghost goo. Ghost.
I
I
struggle
didn't
with
walk
that.
through any ghost goo, but I
Yeah,
did walk through a ghost haze. Anyway,
I was goo. I see.
okay. All right, Ghostbusters.
All right. So, guys, as you know, on the last week's show, we did a question of the week, and I'm going to ask every week. I'm going to ask a question of the week. Short, quick answer. Doesn't have to be long, because we do have another part of the show. This already took 7 hours, so and Jeff is going to resign after this show. So
I love it. This is
By the
perfect.
way, we only have 37 minutes left of recording time.
But this is life, isn't it? You
It
It is.
is.
This is
Exactly,
life
right?
on life's terms.
Exactly. That's
That's
what it gets
right,
these
Jeff.
days too. You're right. So
Um,
true.
Thanks for bringing that up.
yes. So the question of the week is, who is your superhero or mentor in life and why? Comment below, and we're going to answer that. I'm going to go to Jeff first.
So you asked that question. It's a great question. And actually, I can think of many, many people that I put on that list. And it probably changes, because I don't think it's, because as human beings, as we evolve, we have different interests. And then there are things that we honor, and then we switch gears, and then we honor something else. So I have some like automatic go-to people who I just think are really remarkable. So one of the people, I have a twofer. So one of the people is he's actually a retired Navy SEAL, David Goggins. So David Goggins grew up remarkably impoverished, unbelievably abusive household, grew up in Buffalo, and was beaten by his father. And there was a lot of addiction and abuse and mistreatment in his home. And that his mother, actually, who was an abused woman, but highly, educated and worked at a university, they ended up moving to Indiana. And he was, like, as he reports, a bit of a thug in high school. And then one day he's watching television and he sees this Navy SEAL commercial. And he decides he wants to be that person. So first he actually joined the Air Force and had a lackluster career, spent a couple of years and left. Then he started working, and he was a pesticide professional, killing cockroaches late at night at fast food restaurants. He had no life, no meaning, no purpose. And he ballooned up to like over 300 pounds.
Wow.
And he was remarkably miserable. And then he sees the Navy SEAL commercial, and he decides that he wants to be that person. So he goes to the recruiters, and they say, "You're massively overweight. You're 300 pounds. We don't want you." And he kept on going to various recruiting stations. Fast forward, he decides to do it. He loses 120 pounds in 3 months. He becomes a Navy SEAL, but he flunks out during Hell Week 3 times. It took him twice. The third time he got on. So they say he's the most remarkably fit long distance runner in the world. And he just believes that the human capacity, the brain, has the ability to sort of work through everything. So I have like remarkable respect for him because he connects the mind and the body. And he just says, you have to callous your mind. Life is hard. Expect it to be hard. If you know it's hard, it makes you tougher. And he's all about pushing yourself and achieving and not making excuses and be honest with yourself. It's really reminiscent of the 12 steps. And here's the thing called the accountability mirror. You take a mirror in your house and you take these little yellow stickums and you say the hard truth about yourself. You're lazy. You're not working your recovery. You take all the shortcuts.
Mhm.
You never follow through on anything. You lie to your girlfriend. You lie to yourself, and you end up having to be accountable because you look at that every day. So the guy is quite remarkable.
Hmm.
So that's David Goggins. So he's a remarkable physical specimen. He has, he just says, the brain is everything. You can make your brain do things that your body can't do.
Mm.
So, by the way, as a Navy SEAL, he also joined the Army Rangers and Air Force Search and Rescue. He's the only person to have made every elite, military unit in 3 branches of the service.
Right.
So who's my other hero? The book that I was referencing, Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl's not, he's deceased now, but he wasn't an ultra marathon runner. He was not an athlete. He didn't play sports. He was a psychiatrist neurologist who grew up in Vienna when the Nazis invaded. And he was a friend of Freud. And he and his wife and his family was sent to Auschwitz. And so we talk about mentally tough people. So mentally tough people come in all shapes and sizes. And if you saw him or looked at him or listened to an old video clip, he speaks with an Austrian accent. He's overweight. He's an academic. He's a beautiful man, though. He talks about the same things. The brain has the capacity of doing amazing things. And it's tied into a lot of the relevance of spirituality, which I started preparing for our discussion today. So let me read about Viktor Frankl more, because he's all about that there's powers greater than us that allow us to transcend the pain we experience. So whether it's addiction or prison or mental illness or being in Auschwitz, it's the same process. So those are my 2.
Thanks, Jeff. Tiff, who is your superhero or mentor?
When you sent me this question, hi guys, I'm Tiff. I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic, and I am a friend in recovery. And I just want to say that because I believe in that, and I want to say it all the time. And that's who I am. And that's going to help you understand, I think, where I'm coming from right now. When you sent us that question earlier this week, I was like, I don't know superheroes. Like, I'm thinking like flying through the air, like, Superman, stuff like that. And I am not into that stuff. I just don't watch. My kids do, my boys do. I don't. My husband does. Anyway, so the only one I could think of that kept standing out in my mind, and I know that you guys are going to laugh at me again, even though I already told you, it's Harley Quinn. And I was like, I don't know why. She's so, like, I just think she's adorable. I think she's insane. I'm a lot like her. I'm insane. She's a badass. She's extremely clever, but when it comes down to the bottom line of it, she really respects the word love and loyalty. And I think those are 2. I just really love those words, love and loyalty. And they explain myself a lot. I can relate to those 2 words. So that's why I was thinking of Harley Quinn. And so that was just off the cuff. Now, if you were to actually ask me who my mentor was, I would say is my little Grandma Rosie with the wig that I talk about all the time, who talks in, like, is it the first person or the third person or whatever she talks about? But anyway, third person.
Your grandma's going to call you today.
Yeah. She's like, grandma's going to call you, honey. Okay. You know what grandma says. Grandma says, and that's how she talks. But anyway, she's just this very sweet, compassionate woman. But yet she's strong. She's independent. She came from nothing, but yet she always looks like poised. She can wear a sweatsuit and look like she looks like $1 million, right? She just, like, that's just who she is, like, even wearing a sweatsuit. And she's just so adorable, and she has such love for everybody. She believes in God, and she really set that foundation for me. So she's just very, I love her, but yet you want to know what she is really good at? Setting boundaries. Setting boundaries. Like, she does have her flaws, but setting boundaries are really good. And that's something that right now she's really a great mentor for me and has been a mentor my whole life. So that's what I think of as is my little Grandma Rosie. So I don't care what you say, guys, but I got Grandma Rosie and I have Harley Quinn. So
Sky,
back to the newsroom.
Back to the newsroom.
I didn't think of like anyone famous, like a character. I thought about people in my life too. And I was thinking my grandma too, but what really came to mind was my brothers. And I say both of them because they're like the yin and the yang. One is like the probably my partner in crime, where like, you know, we could just like hash it out. I could vent it all out, and he'll vent it with me. And you know, and he's my music guy. He's gonna show me how to feel my feelings through reading the lyrics, stuff like that. Then I got my other brother, and he's Nike, like, just do it. I don't want to hear your BS. I don't want to hear the story. What are you going to do about it? So I have like the one I can vent to and the solution.
Sure.
And both of them, I drive crazy, and they're still always there for me. And like, you know, like they're just loyal brothers, and they really love me, and they've always looked out for me, you know? So
Yeah, that's good.
Thanks, Guy. And guys, my superhero or mentor, I have two also. I think it's a two for today. And one is not famous, but to me, he's famous, and one is somewhat famous. My Uncle Tom, when I was growing up, he was just a great family guy. He was just that guy that took us to play baseball, football. Always, you know, he had us doing. You know, he kept stats on us when we played baseball. We had two little teams. He kept stats. So if you hit most home runs, you would get a banana split. You know, if you kept most, but you know, he was just that guy. And as we got older and I got into recovery, he kind of took me under. He's not in recovery. He kind of took me under his wings. Him and I started running together. You know, it was just this really good relationship that I had. He kind of stepped in for my dad when I was growing up, because my dad was too busy at the bar.
yeah.
And Uncle Tom took us on trips all over the place, you know, skiing and Maine, up to hiking up in Acadia National Park, and you name it. He took us everything. So he is my superhero, my Uncle Tom. My mentor is a guy he's from your part of the woods, your neck of the woods, Long Island, Jesse Itzler. I think he started Coconut Water. He also wrote some songs for the NBA back in the 90s. That's kind of how he started his career, got onto MTV with it. And he also did not NetJet, but he had another one of those jet things. Forgot what it was. Anyways, he's just a great guy. He's an ultra marathon runner. He does a lot of good things for a community that I belong to called BYLR. And it's very similar to people in recovery. It's not a recovery community, but just the goals that we set for ourselves, monthly, weekly, yearly goals. It's just amazing. So Jesse Itzler, and he actually wrote a book about the Navy SEAL, David Goggins. It's called Living with a SEAL. He hired David Goggins.
That's right.
Yeah.
He lives in Hawaii.
A month. Yeah. When he lived in New York. And
New York.
Great book. So yeah. So that is our question of the week, guys. Just give us below. You don't even have to tell us why. Just tell us who your superhero is, or who your mentor is. You know, if you want to email us at helpingfriendsrecoverypodcast.com, we can we'll read about them on the air next week if you do that. So guys, we're going to go right into step 2. We're going to take a clinical look at step 2. Jeff Zeizel is a clinical social worker. And what else are you, Jeff?
So I am a clinical social worker. I have a lot of experience with addiction. I actually have a master's in public health. I do sports psychology. My primary thing these days is actually just working with addictions, but I am the clinician for multiple police departments. So I respond to traumatic events. So all these things tend to overlap one way or the other.
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to talk about step 2, and I'm going to read it, and we're going to go into it. And I'll open the floor to you first, Jeff.
Sure.
Came to believe a power greater than ourselves could lead us to sanity. That's a very powerful step, guys. And as you know, the last 2 shows, I know we had a lot of fun the last 2 shows with Carl and SoberPod, but it's definitely a tough step to kind of get over. Some people think it's easy, but when you really get into it, you really have to do some work and some soul searching and kind of figure out who is my higher power? You know what I mean? Who is the power greater than myself? So Jeff, from a clinical standpoint of view, what's God to human beings? Is it important that we have a God in our lives? I guess is some of the questions that might be out there. Why is it important that we believe in something? Like, why would people believe in a coffee cup or a God that we can't even see? Clinically, what does that do for us? If that's a good opening segue question.
Well, the first thing I would say, it's really hard to drink coffee in your hands. So coffee cups are actually remarkably useful. But that being said, I like the old phrase, there's no atheists in foxholes. So, and the reason there's no atheists in foxholes is we need to have hope. We need to have belief in something. So we know actually what the literature tells us about people who go through traumatic events. And interesting, because I respond to so many terrible circumstances where police have been in a critical incident where there was a shooting or a hostage taking or a plane crash where people get terribly hurt. And and I remember actually responding to it was a DEA case up in New Hampshire where the three quote bad guys were in the hotel and they started firing, bullets firing their weapons, bullets were trying to hit these agents. They became this big gunfight. So ultimately, at the end of it, 3 people are dead. All the bad guys with guns trying to kill the agents all died. And then I was brought up to interview and work with the DEA agents and other police who were involved in that event. So as it turns out, it was actually remarkably tragic. 2 of the people who died actually died of drug overdoses while this gunfight is occurring. The third person who had the weapon was trying to shoot others. He got killed by a gentleman who was formerly a Marine sniper. So when they asked me, Jeff, what do you think we should do? I said, we have to debrief and let's get all these guys together. And what we know is that when people go through a terrible time, they need to have a sense of hope that they can get through this. So that's really step 2. Step 2 is about hope and something greater than us. But the point I wanted to make, so I interview all the players involved, and I meet with as we would say, the man who fired the kill shot. So as it turns out, he's a remarkably great guy, devoutly Catholic, very, very religious. So we start talking about faith and religion. And I said, do you ever think that maybe God put you in a place where you're doing something that has such meaning and power in your life? He said, yeah, sometimes I think that. And I said, I think this is one of those moments because he put you in this place where you were able to calmly and coolly fire, unfortunately, kill someone, take someone's life, but you also saved countless other people's lives. So there's a sense of hope and spirituality. But what we do know is that people who are more devout and religious actually do much better when bad things happen. But that doesn't mean that's the only way to Rome because there's many roads. And I also think that, when we're dealing with spirituality and that something is greater than us, it's really about optimism. Like I believe that something can be helping us. And when you're thinking those thoughts, it actually takes courage because it takes courage to believe you can get through this. It's easy to give up. It's easy to say, forget it. I'm never going to get well. There's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do to improve my sense of this dynamic that's playing out. So step 2, there's this element of spirituality and the concept that it's greater than me is really a universal thing because most humanoids that go back, so the planet is 7 billion years old. Modern man, depending on how you define it, if you talk to anthropologists, there were many, men, hominoids who predated us. Australopithecus, Homo erectus, which is a modern man, Neanderthal man, Cro-Magnon man. And by the way, Neanderthal man, I think I might have said this before, it gets a bad rap. They were actually quite intelligent. So Ed, when I call you a Neanderthal, you should say thank you. So,
Thank you.
but but one of the things we do know is that they all have beliefs. They believe that there was something greater. Like Native people have amazing belief systems. They believed actually that God created fish, and that fish, which of course nature creates fish, maybe it's God, but when a leaf fell from a tree and it hit the water, they believed that became a fish. So so we have all these concepts about, how we look at things, and there generally every every tribe and clan, ethnicity have belief systems, and we tend to believe that there's something greater than us.
Yeah.
So I tend to believe that too. So it goes back to some of the questions we ask ourselves. So where did man come from? How did the earth start? How did all this get here? So it's a metaphysical construct. It's scientific. But by the way, people who believe in science, that's also powerful. That's also spiritual. Because how do you explain gravity? How do you explain physics? How do you explain that certain things are lighter than air and float, but we can't? There's an element of things greater than us.
So Jeff, I want to talk about that piece, because there are people out there that don't believe in a religion, that don't believe in a God, that don't want to do that. Now, that they don't have that that kind of belief in some of the things that you were talking about. So science is a way to, kind of a power greater than ourselves.
Science, nature, relationships, self-discipline. I mean, those things are greater than us, but science is a perfect example. So, can you be religious and scientific and read the Bible? I say yes, of course, because you don't always take everything so literal.
Yeah.
Right. I was just listening to a different, I guess maybe it was a YouTube video, and they're talking about that, this step does not say came to believe in a power greater than ourselves. It says came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So a power, when like what you're talking about, Jeff and Ed, is something greater than me. We just met with someone who said, 0 + 1 is still 1, but 1 + 1 is 2, right? And something bigger than just me. Like we talked about last week, we can believe in the group is something bigger than myself. That is a power greater than myself, right? Because 1 + 1 = 2, which means it's a greater number. And that's something that, and those people that I'm going to believe in, or something that I'm going to believe in, I want to associate that with somebody who has already achieved something that I want, or can help me get to the place that I want to be. That's just what I was just watching. It was a YouTube video about actually not even addiction. So, but we were talking about addiction overall. It wasn't just AA, that these steps can be used anywhere for any problem. When you have something bigger than you or greater than you. Right.
Yep.
Yes.
The traditions help me know how to live with people in society.
Yes.
I forget I can apply that to my life. It's like they're written for us. It's like a guideline,
Right.
Tiff, you made a great point, because the ability. So I always say, 1 + 1 is sometimes more than 2, because it's the energy. It's we're in this together. We have each other's back. It's synergistic.
All those other people that those two people know.
Right. And so, of course, in a mathematical world, it's 2, but you get a couple of people together, then, think about 4 of us. We generate these interesting conversations, and we feed off of each other, and we create greater things, more than just 4 individuals, each contributing something. And, when we think about, the sense of spirituality, it's really about understanding, like, it takes more than a person also to do things. But we also, the beauty of the 12 steps is, people help you, but you help others, and how we benefit from that, the give and take.
Well, the 1 + 1, forgot who wrote the song, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, 1 + 1 = 1. Think about that. 1 + 1 = 1. That's the human race right there. 1 + 1 = 1.
That must be the new math, Ed.
Yeah. 1 + 1
messed up the Beatles
ONE.
Yeah. No, but that's nature. That's the universe. That is human life. That is human beings. That's just a power greater than myself. 2 people making 1 person. You know what I mean? And
Right.
there has to be something out, like we were talking earlier today, there has to be something out there that can do this, that can produce all this. And Sky, you said it last week perfectly on the show. You said, I think I'm in control of everything, but I'm not. I'm sitting here breathing, my heart's pumping, my blood's going through my body. I'm thinking.
I ain't doing any of that.
Ain't doing nothing of it, right? And that's the same thing when human life is created, right? So that is also an amazing kind of feat in this world. And that's also, if that whole thing is a power greater than myself, creating a new human being, like we're, but Jeff, I want to get back, and I know I went off a little on a tangent,
Yeah,
but
it's okay.
when groups, right? Groups, when somebody believes in the power of a group, okay, why clinically, why do they do that? Like, I can't wrap my head around believing in the power of a group. I understand the power of a group. I understand each person and how I can pick. That's why I asked today, guys, who was your mentor? Because it's important that we pick mentors and we use them correctly. But I wouldn't use my mentor as a higher power. Okay.
Well, it's funny that we each picked two, right?
That is
Like,
interesting.
think about that. Like, all of us,
What are the
each of
odds?
us said two. And wouldn't you know it, those are powers that are greater than just us alone,
True.
Yep, exactly.
It also shows that we don't listen to Ed.
We don't follow directions well.
We're really bad at
Being a
following directions.
dickhead.
But
Watch out, you're talking to Jersey Ed.
That's right. Be careful. I can end
But
this
Ed,
time.
but the interesting thing about the group is that why are they effective? Why are they so powerful? Because number one, everyone brings something to the table. As Oscar Wilde said, just be yourself. Everyone else is taken. So we bring ourselves, but we learn from each other and we share with each other. But more, most powerfully is, I think, from Dr. Barb and Bill W. They realized that when people who had the same problem got together, all of a sudden the judgment was gone. I feel better about myself, but so do you. And we're doing the same thing. You know what? We're going to support each other. I'm not going to criticize you and make you feel bad. Why? I do the same exact thing. In fact, I'm grateful that you exist, because I thought I was the only one. I felt like a loser. I felt like a terrible person. And then I discovered
that's how you get that hope you were talking about, Jeff.
Right.
Like, I was going to ask you what method you use most, like, for hope, because you were talking about that hope that this step provides. But I know, like, if someone comes in your office, what's like the best method to ask, like, to help them develop that hope? Like, they're hopeless. They walk in your office and, like, what do you do clinically to help them get there?
So I always tell them, sometimes therapy is educating. And sometimes it's also just people talking. And sometimes it's people talking about something that's not even therapeutic. It's just human beings.
Sure.
Did you watch the ball game last night? Terrible weather today. We normalize interactions. And then they actually feel comfortable. And sometimes I'll see people come in like, I don't know about this therapy stuff. Like, what is it? I said, just two people talking. I said, and by the way, I bring some expertise to the meeting, but so do you. And I'll learn from you, and you'll learn from me, and we can share some of this information. But it is interesting. One of the first things I always say is that your disorder, your disease is highly treatable. It may not be easy, but it's highly treatable. That's hope. Yes. And I said, and I've been doing this for a long time. So we get people who know that, I know people who've gotten better.
It's funny that you bring that up, Jeff, because, this step, if you think about the first step was a doctor, talked about the problem, and then the second step, what comes in the psychology part of it, that you need the spiritual awakening to move on and recover. And that's where Dr. Jung comes in, or Dr. Jung. How do you say it?
Jung. Yeah, Carl Jung.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so first we have our clinical doctor's perspective, and now we're at step 2, and we have our, the top psychologist in the world, or whatever he was, or psychiatrist, or whatever it was. He's saying, okay, you need to have some sort of spiritual awakening in order to heal 100% or completely. And he said, heal, not cure, right? Heal. Yeah. What do you think about that? I mean, what do you think, like, from the clinical perspective, and how this step particularly is about healing?
So it is so interesting, because there's many ways that we heal. So, I can maybe go to church or religious institutions and pray, and I can heal that way. Or I can go and exercise and work out, and there's tremendous healing that takes place in that. Or I cannot isolate and be with others and just break bread or drink a cup of coffee. There's studies that show that when people are using drugs, of course, they'll have electrodes attached to certain parts of the brain. So it's the pleasure centers of the brain, and drugs and alcohol, and they get this little electric, bump up. Chemicals get released. They feel pleasure. They also discovered that a person just bumping into any other person, a stranger or otherwise, and have a conversation with that person for a couple minutes has the same exact chemical reaction. So what do we know? We know we heal just by being with others.
Sure.
And you get rid of the drugs, you replace it with other things. AA is about self-awareness, motivation, desire, learning that you can be well and doing other things, but being part of a community, because that we help each other. And we also know, of course, the adage is better to give than receive. When we help others, we always feel better. So interestingly, we talk about groups. So I had my police group today on Thursdays. I had 9 people and 2 women, 7 men, all through various circumstances. Many of them have been involved in shootouts. One has killed someone. And we talk about, would you want to trade your disorder, your problem, your trauma with anyone else? I'm not so sure you would, because you already own yours. You already have, found a way to make it work for you. But when we think about the sense of people being together, that really is helpful. One of the things that if you're asking, so if someone comes in, how do you help them? What do you do? So we talk about by the way, your disorder is treatable. You can get better. It may not be easy, but you can get better. And there's many ways of it getting better. We can meet, you can go to a 12-step meeting, you can do some other things, maybe medication is part of it, but you also have to put yourself out there. You have to take some risk. You have to be willing to sort of try some new things. And we give them tools so when they're panicking and worried and anxious, they can reframe the thought. Gee, Jeff said, or someone said that this could happen. This will go away in a couple minutes. I can take a deep breath and this will pass. Give it give it a day, give it a couple minutes. We'll get better. The other thing I think that's remarkable about recovery is that people have an identity. Oh, my identity is such and such, alcoholic, addict, user, etc. Yeah, that's a label, but we don't have to live by our labels. We can also have a new identity. I'm in recovery. I'm a mentor. I'm a sponsor. I'm a student. I'm a person who's growing. And that's all about purpose. Those who have purpose always do better. So we know you wake up, you have nothing to do, you're kind of depressed. You wake up, you got to hit the ground running. There's so much to do. You don't even have time to be depressed because you are achieving. And as you achieve, you just feel so much better. So I had talked earlier about Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. So what's that about? It's about having purpose in life. It's about identifying what's the most important thing. And he actually says that there are 3 types of purposes. There's one purpose is work. I work, it makes me feel good, it gives me identity. And it's not the only identity, because there should be multiple identities you have. So when I see cops, I say, don't have all your friends as police officers, have other people, because if your identity is that, and when you retire, you got nothing. So it has to be spread out. So it's work, it's love, it's courage. Those are the 3 main purposes, because if you can have courage, it means you can achieve anything. So one should always believe that what gives them purpose is having courage. That gets you out of bed in the morning. That gets you walking into a meeting. That gets you applying for a job. That gets you traveling around the world and going to a foreign country where you don't even speak their language and you know the cultures. But how you end up feeling after that? You feel fantastic. So So I always try to get people to do new things. Why? Because they will feel better. We know that most people who are addicted have an underlying problem with depression, anxiety, and low self-worth. They try something new, they master it, what happens? They feel so much better. So it's about, and that's the courage part. And then there's the love part. 1 + 1 = 2. you're with others, you love each other, and it may not even be a romantic love. It's love of a fellow person and achieving connection. So there's a lot of like these elements that sort of, coalesce with each other.
Well, and you know what, Jeff, that's what you're speaking about here is a well-rounded type person. So, being happy, being healthy, being, getting up and not and hit the ground running. Now, what I've got out of that, when I asked you about a group, you were saying, eat healthy, run, take care of your mental health, do this, do that, have a mentor, love your wife or your husband. That's a group that we put together.
Yeah.
And it could be, I mean, to me, that wouldn't be my higher power, but that could be somebody's higher power. All those groups, because you know what? What is it? Together we stay so.
Together we rise, together we fall. But what's interesting? A group, you're right. A group could be many, many things. So we think about a traditional group. Oh, it's a Girl Scout group. It's a group of parishioners who go to church. But a group could be the same people who ride the bus every day. Mm-hmm. A group could be the people you work with. It could be the PTO. It could be people who work together in a community garden. It could be an AA group. Yeah. And then you develop relationships. And, and it's important to have that. It's a sense of community. Human beings need to be part of something. That's why those of us who are isolated go downhill really fast. And we need human touch. So there's a famous study in the early part of the 1900s in an orphanage in Colombia. Margaret Mahler, a child psychiatrist, goes to an orphanage. You can never do this study today. So they have babies abandoned at birth, and they had two groups of babies. It was through the church, and they instructed the one group of people worked there to just feed the baby, change the baby, give them nourishment, and not touch them. Feed them, clean them, burp them, put them back. The other group did the same thing, but then they held them, they cuddled them, they cooed with them, they played with them. And it was called the Failure to Thrive study. Those who were not touched by human beings died. Those who had touch lived. You can never do the study today.
I could confirm it for you because my son was a NICU baby. So he was born at 28 weeks, 2 pounds, 6 ounces. So in the NICU, I saw many babies by themselves. He was actually next to a baby that was older than him, and he outgrew that baby because that baby never had visitors. The baby sat there. So you're right. It can't be done. They don't even let people come in to hold the babies anymore, but it's so true. It's so true.
I saw the same thing with the 2 pound baby. Sky and I are connected immediately because we both had 2 pound, 14 ounce or 4 ounce babies at 28 weeks. And they were both super, super tiny. And we know what it means to see babies who aren't touched versus are touched. It's incredible, the difference, you guys.
Yeah, love. Yeah.
Do you ever see walk down the street and you see people holding hands? I mean, that's a beautiful gesture. It's like unconscious. No, people don't do that much. They're on their iPhones. Right. But you see people holding hands. I mean, it's an amazing thing. And it's funny because I'm an identical twin. So when my brother and I, we're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, we walk down the street, we'd hold hands together. So here we are, older men. And when they were walking, I grab his hand. And he looks at me, we both start laughing. I said, remember we used to hold hands?
That's great.
I want to point out, you were talking about groups before, and why they're important, and groups because groups, when we get into these NICUs or when we're with our babies, we raise our babies. A mom and a dad are a group, a sister and brother and mom and dad are a group. You raise your babies. But when we get into let's say AA, when you put a bunch of drunks in a room and you get them all grouped together, we in the rooms call God a group of drunks, G-O-D, right? How crazy is that we're a group of drunks. It spells out God, and you're trying to find your higher power, so the group is definitely important because, like you said, we will fail if we don't all kind of get together and kind of put ourselves and be something. Like you were saying with Goggins before, perfect example of a group. He didn't go into Hell Week by himself. He didn't do it by himself. If you read his book, they first of all, anytime they entered the water, they had partners and they stayed in groups. That's number one. Number two, those groups started off at 3,000 people, whittled their way down when Hell Week came down to about 20 people, 10 people. So you're still with a group, you know what I mean? And then it whittled down to maybe 3 or 4, but that's still a group. But that group went from here all the way down to these 3 people. And they learned all through what they were doing, how they were doing it. And these 3 or 4 people, when they graduate, they learned all that because of that group, because of the failures of some people in the group, because of the people quitting, because of the people, saying, okay, you're the stronger one, and whatever it is. So that group, like us, group of drunks, we learn from each other. I learned from relapses. I learned from people maybe not going to meetings as much as they should be. I learned from people who, like we say, two-step it. I learned from that, and that's the group. I learned from that group, and it's really, really important that that we do stay GOD, a group of drunks, so we can heal together. And again, boom, there's your higher power.
Right.
I'm not pushing on you, but I'm just saying. It's in.
What do you think about the second part, though, Jeff? Especially from a clinical perspective, the second or the end. It's not a second part. It's all one step. But the word insanity is in this step. Now, for me, and I know Ed had said this too, and I can't remember what Skylar, if you had said this too, it was easy for me, and I can only talk for me, to accept that I was insane, that I was justifying insane behavior that I was doing, and I was going out and doing it over and over and over. As I slowly began to heal, I was able to see even more my insane behavior. But some people really struggle with that insanity word.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was going to say that people who can call themselves that's a healthy response, because at the end of the day, we are all imperfect or insane or a little crazy. And it's sort of liberating, refreshing to say that. But we can say it because we also aren't going to be judging ourselves, and the ability to sort of make fun of yourself and be self-deprecating. It's really a type of humility. So people who say, oh yeah, I'm kind of crazy. You know what they also feel? There's a part of me that's really together. There's a part of me that's worked really hard to get to this. I could say this and not feel bad about it. The person who gets defensive hasn't done the work.
Right. And I feel like too, I've met some people, this is from another perspective, guys, that they rely too heavily on God or only on God. And I've seen them fail over and over and over because they only rely on God, not that collaborative thinking, right? Yeah. And I also see some of the same people, right, who don't accept the insanity part, right, fail over and over and over because like I said, I could see now that I was justifying my insane behavior. I was trying to make everybody else, and myself in my own head, like this was okay behavior, even though I knew it was insane. So I could accept that right away. But some people cannot. What were you saying that Carl was going to say last week?
Last week is that why would I, and this is a good question for you, Jeff, why would I do something crazily insane versus I think he put it this way: go to treatment, get well, or keep doing what you're doing, getting arrested, going back to jail.
Oh, yeah. It says that in the book. Right. I can either choose to justify this crazy behavior and go on to the bitter end, or I could, just take spiritual help and it will be okay, right? I can follow this book. But why do we pause and think about that, Jeff? Why does our insane pause and say, well, maybe I do want to stay crazy and drinking and go on to the bitter end?
And you've experienced that in your office right there, people saying, well, no, I'm going to go out again. I'm sure,
So I think there's a number of factors. First of all, everyone's different. So we can't always universally say everyone's responding the same, but there are some general universals. I mean, you keep on using drugs and booze, it's gonna kill you eventually. So what do we know? That some people are in denial, so they don't want to admit they have a problem, because if I admit I have a problem, therefore I must do something. But if I say, oh, it's not a problem, those alcohol and drug treatment programs or those meetings, that's for people who have a problem. So I operate in denial. Thus, I don't need it because I think I'm fine. So why do I keep on using? Because I think I'm fine. Or I'm afraid. I'm afraid what life will be like without it. I'm not sure I can handle that. That's where it takes courage. So what we say, Viktor Frankl said, man's search for meaning. You have to have purpose. What's purpose? Work, courage, and love. And we can spell them out, spill it out to other variables. But, courage is something about confronting yourself and being honest to yourself and saying, I'm going to try to do this. So, Tiff, when you had said, why is it that people continue to do this? Because they're afraid. And it's hard. It takes guts to decide you're going to change. But if
I felt that, I felt denial and I felt fear.
Yeah.
And now looking back, for a split second, something took over me and words came out of my mouth and said, I need help. I knew I was doing something wrong. I didn't want to continue to justify the behavior, but I was afraid to fix it. And I was afraid of what it looked like on the other side too. How was I going to live? What did this mean? I only knew this world, right? What was I going to be?
Yeah.
Without alcohol and drugs. I only knew a world of alcohol and drugs and how to behave in that manner.
Hey, Jeff, do you ever use like motivational interviewing or CBT to like help them see this stuff? Like clinically, like motivational interview is pretty good, right?
Yeah, yes, it really is good. So motivational interviewing is really about meeting the person where they're at. So someone gets arrested for drunk driving 3 times and they come to the office because they're mandated by the court. So I said, do you think you have a problem? No, I just think I had 3 bad cops who had it in for me. So, okay.
Pretty cool.
I understand. Yeah. Sometimes, sometimes the cops can be kind of nasty,
It happens.
And then, of course, I tell them I work with cops and they love that. So, but it is helpful because it's really about letting the person rise to the occasion. Like when you have teenagers and you tell them what to do all the time, they can become resentful. If you say, well, what do you think you should do? They often come up with the answer. Like when my kids had to be, quote, disciplined, I would say, well, what do you think the discipline would be? What do you think it should be? They would always discipline themselves much harder than I ever would. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, yes, no food for 17 months. But you'll have a lot of things you have a lot of liquid. But it's interesting. We were talking about, this of like a group and what a powerful experience it is. We know that we go to these groups, all of a sudden we see someone who's like us. We connect on whatever level. I always say you can relate to people at some level. And maybe you don't even speak the same language, but maybe you have children, or maybe you're a certain age, or what have you. But if you make the effort, you can find some commonality. Okay. But when we get people thrown in the group together, they're there to help each other, and everyone's at a different level. We do know that the experience of being together is powerful. And what you'll find is that people will leave and sometime later you'll say, so how was that group? Oh, it was really good. What'd you talk about? I don't remember, but it was really good. Mm-hmm. So what are they saying? They felt good. People treated them nicely. So
I know, right? It's like not about how long we know someone, it's about how they make us feel. Right?
Exactly right.
But I'm glad you brought that up, Sky, because that is a real clinical perspective. I went through a study while at the U of M while I was in residential treatment, and they pounded into us that they found that the highest success rate for alcoholics and drug addicts to stay clean, or the length of whatever, if it was length sobriety or whatever, the highest success came from going through inpatient treatment as well as it being followed up with some sort of CBT or DBT therapy, in conjunction, with some sort of a therapy that's an ongoing process to teach us tools to stay sober.
What's inpatient treatment, guys? It's a group. It's a group.
Well, but they're
that's
saying
your first group therapy you really experience.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. A group of like-minded people. And like Jeff said, meeting them where they're at. And that group, those therapists in your treatment center, my treatment center, Skylar, yours, they met us where we were at. But as a whole group, we were a group of drunks. We were a group of drug addicts. We were a group of whatever, and they treated us differently, but we were all one, right? And That's how this program works. We're all one. Jeff, I want to, we're going to have to close here in a minute, but I want to read the last sentence of step 2 on page 33. True humility and an open mind can lead us to faith. And every AA meeting is an assurance that God will restore us to sanity if we rightly relate ourselves to him. So that's very powerful right there. True humility. When I can just honestly say, okay, you know, I need to just kind of just let somebody help me out. That's number 1, you know, asking for help. Number 2, an open mind. Open mind being to step 2 is huge. A God of my understanding and power greater than myself. It doesn't have to be a God. It could be whatever. But at the end here, and this is the question I have for you, God will restore us to sanity if we rightly relate ourselves to him. How does that work? If we relate, I don't know. I don't think I should say how does that work. How does that, as a human being, make us aligned with what's going to make us humble and keep an open mind by relating to God or the universe? You know, what does that do psyche, I guess, psychologically or clinically? Why should I do that?
Yeah. So it's a great point. It's similar to what we had talked about last time, which is that, so, you know, we're saying, like, let it go, take a risk, believe that something greater, God or whatever you believe your higher power is, will help you. It's really about coming to terms with what you have control over. So when I say that, like last week we talked about in step 1, you know, ultimately it's like we're powerless. So it's really an extension of that. It's like I am powerless and I'm hoping and believing. So we know that step 2 has a lot about hope, and there's a spiritual component. It's optimism. I believe that if I let go of some of these negative constructs of my behavior, that something greater than me can actually help me. So it's really like, and when we look back in mankind, you know, people have prayed to all sorts of deities. You know, we tend to believe in our culture, you know, we're monotheistic, you know, one God. We don't pray to golden calves and golden deities. We pray to one entity. And that's most religions, although they do have other sort of spin-offs. So what are we saying? We're saying that there's something greater than us, that we believe is going to, you know, help us, restore us to sanity. We're basically saying, I can't do it. I need to surrender. Because if we look back, well, how's it been, you know, I like to say, so how's that been working out for you so far? You know, not very well. So I let go of it, and then something greater takes over, and then something bad happens. See, I knew God wasn't there, but sometimes you got to give it a shot. That's where we keep an open mind. We don't always get it the first time. So, and we also want to keep an open mind to other people. Like someone messes up, you know, we don't have to beat them up. Let's keep an open mind, cut them a break. You know, we don't always get it right the first time.
Yeah.
How do you see, Jeff, when you're working with alcoholics and addicts, how do you see trauma and abuse relating to this step? Like, or, you know, relating to addiction and this step, trauma, abuse. Do you see that there's a high relation, or how is it get in the way of this step? How can we get past that trauma and abuse in this step? You know,
yeah, it's a very good
question. We can move forward and believe in something greater than ourselves.
So we know that, you know, there's many comorbidities. So, you know, someone was abused as a child, they were sexually assaulted, there's suicides in their family, they lived in poverty, they were beaten, you know, they have addiction, they have mental illness, a lot of comorbidities, and it's tough. So we know that, you know, statistically, the more comorbidities you have, the harder they are to treat. But we also expect that people with addiction, they come with some baggage. So what's the baggage? It's typically, you know, some sort of abuse, depression, anxiety, etc. And you have to, you know, treat them in, you know, we used to say in the old days, oh, treat the addiction first. Well, yeah, of course, get them detox, find out what their baseline is. But we also have to treat them together. We have to be gentle. We have to be kind. We have to actually educate them. A lot of therapy is about educating people, teaching them skills. What's cognitive behavioral therapy? You learn how to change how you think. You change how you feel. And then you learn about the triggers. Gee, this is a trigger for me. What's a trigger? Well, I have this experience or this external situation or a sound or a smell, it brings me back to a previous experience, which isn't always good. And we know that the olfactory sense is the strongest sense of recall. So you could be driving down the street and smell something and it's a negative trigger, or conversely, it's a positive trigger. Walking down the street, the North End, Italian section of Boston, someone's cooking something and you smell it. And actually, this happened to me. It reminded me of my grandmother's apartment. So, and we're Jewish, not Italian, but some of the food smelled the same. Depending what they were cooking a pot of chicken, I think, for chicken cacciatore. Ed. So Ed, is actually my Jewish cousin. He's both Italian and Jewish. So according to ancestry. So, but it is interesting because these things do go together.
Yes.
And we have to treat them together. But we know that you can't succeed unless you treat them both. So you get someone in good recovery, but you never really deal with the trauma. Guess what? It's going to rear its ugly head. Something's going to happen. So I saw a cop today who had a lot of trauma, also alcoholic. And they had a really bad experience happen just recently. And I said, so how's the week going? Not so great. So he tells me something bad happened and it triggered it. But he did say what he's learning in recovery is that the drinking is not going to resolve the problem. It's a quick fix, but it creates more problems. And he had the wherewithal, amazingly, to think it through. So we sometimes say, think a drink. So what would have happened if you drank? Well, I would have felt good for that moment. And I would have had a few more and a few more. Then I'd go home and my wife would be upset and I'd be in rough shape and I couldn't go to work and so on and so forth. So we learn like this is not a good pattern. Part of what we try to help people learn is new patterns. So I feel this, I have some alternatives. So, I can journal, I can call my sponsor, I can go to a meeting, I can meditate, I can practice mindfulness, I can go for a run, I could read a book, I could take a nap, I can listen to a podcast, I can do many, many things.
It's and the reason I asked that question is because I have all these workbooks and I tell everybody this all the time on the podcast and all my meetings, and step 2 and step 4, but are the only, or not the only, have the most questions related to trauma or unfairness in my life or or relating to what's holding me back. It's all trauma, unfairness, things are all in those 2 steps. The most questions in these workbooks relate to trauma and my addiction, or, and I find them the most in step 2. And so I'm saying there's so many questions that relate to step 2 related to trauma. And I want to relate that into our discussion today. And it's basically telling me in what you just told me. And my husband asked me last night, why do you think you've had success where other people have not? Right. And that's a fair question for him to ask. Right.
Good question.
And I think it's because I've had so much work with a therapist on my mental health, right? With my group, my fellowship, where I've created connection, and then my sponsor, so that's where I think I went over that hurdle on step 2, is that I had the therapist to talk about these other things, these mental illnesses, these comorbidities that you're talking about, trauma, past unfairness, whatever it is, PTSD. I've had the therapist to work on that. I've had my fellowship to work closely on my addiction, right? And then my sponsor is someone I work closely, even more close, and that's what got me through step 2.
Guys, this is a perfect example of I like Jeff coming on once a month because it shows, and Tiffany just said it, that these steps can be worked in a clinical setting. They can, like,
Definitely.
Jeff is not in recovery, nor does he wish to be, but he's he understands it. So from exactly what you said, Tiff, your sponsor, the group, your network, they get you through one piece. The clinical piece, you can ask, your therapist, get a therapist. It's so important. And go through the steps with your therapist too. They're not going to do exactly what your sponsor does. They're not going to do what's going to happen in the rooms, but they're going to explain things on a different level. So you can understand it between trauma, between a higher power, whatever it is. Well, even step one, why should I stop drinking? Well, let's look at that. And, Jeff, you would probably list a whole bunch of different things, but what's it going and where's it turning your life into and what's it affecting, blah, 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 so on and so forth. So I really encourage everybody. Again, the other thing too is this is just opinion of 4 people on a podcast. This doesn't mean it's written in stone, but my suggestion or
Capital O for opinion. Capital O.
Exactly.
Yeah. Opinion.
My opinion, because it worked for me, obviously Tiff and Skylar, is let's get a therapist and really dig into those questions that might need a little bit more clinical, like
definitely
all that with your therapist on the step 2, because you have to keep an open mind with step 2. That's what we've been finding out. If you don't keep an open mind, and especially with your therapist, if you don't keep an open mind, it ain't going to work. It ain't going to work. So if it ain't going to work with a therapist who's a professional, what's going to happen when you get out into the real world or work with your sponsor or talk to other people? If you're not keeping an open mind, it's all just going to fall apart, like you said earlier, Jeff, So
very true.
Any last words on step 2, because we have to close.
Real quick before we close, because you guys just made like such a huge point. Like the whole reason we do steps is to like learn the spiritual principles, right? And like there's so much you can do in the clinical office, because the spiritual principles of step 2, and Jeff said them all throughout the entire podcast, just so we're clear. So right out of the NA workbook, the spiritual principles: open-mindedness, willingness, faith, trust, and humility. He named all those as he explained how he would work with a client. So very much the step work is in clinical setting. You know what I mean? It's just worded different, but it's totally step work, you know?
Absolutely.
He's going to show us how to deal with humility, how to be, like accepting and stuff like that. That's what he does.
What are my feelings? What are feelings? Right?
Exactly.
I didn't know that. I was in this step when I got so close with a therapist, and that therapist said to me, you know what? You need more. You need DBT. You need an intensive outpatient DBT, a dialectical behavioral therapy, so that I have to remember, not everybody knows what DBT is, right? So you need to learn what your feelings are and how to handle them first, right? Before we can go into a deeper setting, a deeper dive into what you need, right? But what I learned is that, AA is not a cure for my mental illness, right? But in conjunction, right? AA is a cure in conjunction, right? Together with AA and a therapist, this is exactly what I need.
Mm-hmm.
I need AA and a therapist.
Sum it all up, but I think Skylar and Tiffany just summed up.
Sorry.
Good job, ladies.
You want to throw any?
We're walking billboards, Sky and I.
I was like, holy cow! I'm like,
we love the program.
Yeah, but here is a salute or a high five to therapy, because everybody's in therapy. Everybody who's in therapy or at some point in their life was or are in therapy, and that's what we learned, guys. Exactly what you heard. We didn't make this shit up. We don't study it in books. We learned it from a gentleman just like Jeff, or a woman, in the same position.
But better.
Yeah, but
yes.
That's exactly how that all works. Anything, Jeff, you want to sum up step 2 or anything before we go?
Yeah. So I would say, we all have a sense of spirituality. Sometimes we're not connected. We don't know it, but just look outside. Look at a bird. Look at the sunrise. Look at. We are so insignificant, and there's a world out there that's so beyond us. And I always think like everything is made of atoms. So when it's all energy. So when we die, there's still atoms. There's atoms in our ashes. So there's still energy. So all of us have energy. So if that's not a sense of spirituality, I'm not sure what is. So, and it doesn't have to be God. It's energy. Einstein said E equals MC squared. Everything has energy. So we're all made of energy. A pen, a piece of paper, it's all atoms moving a particular way. So, and you can burn it, and you can crumble it, you can toss it, and it can degrade. It's still something else. So when you were talking earlier, I know talking about ghosts and so on, but there's energy. So we can't always define it. The thing I always like to say to my patients, though, if you're going to work in recovery, you got to do the work. You can't sub it out.
Yeah.
So you can't hire someone to do push-ups for you. The things you must do yourself.
Yeah. Own your disease, own your recovery.
Right. Speaking of a disease, I want to just say something about SoberPod. Carl.
That was really clever.
You like
I
that?
actually really like that. Speaking of a disease, let's talk about Carl at Sober Pod.
Right, that's it. Go listen
For
to
Genital House.
here's some
Genital House, yeah, we're gonna get him back. Disease, Sober Pod.
We will. Guys, we love SoberPod. As you guys know, last 2 shows, Carl was on with us, did an amazing job. Less cursing on this show, I noticed. But
Yeah.
okay. And
Shut the hell up, Ed.
but
I
Coming the
always
fuck
say
back.
that. Did we even curse? I say that to my husband. Did we even curse? And now I'm thinking I probably said it probably at least 20 times on this show. But anyway,
well, if not, then we have enough of the F word from Carl the last.
yeah.
I really encourage our listeners, go over to listen to SoberPod. They have a great show. And they plug us, we plug them. We really kind of work together. I talk to Carl almost every day. He's part of my network, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Real good guy. Jeff had the pleasure of meeting Carl at
Yes.
a loved one's meeting a couple of weeks ago.
Carl is very impressive. I like Carl.
Yeah, absolutely. So listen to SoberPod, soberpod.com. Go support them. They have a members only section, have all that stuff. So go listen to them, and we love SoberPod. So on that, guys, step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. It's an amazing step. It's a step that we can talk about probably the rest of the year, clinically, from AA standpoint of view, from a sponsor standpoint of view, from a sponsee standpoint of view, from a drunk standpoint of view, and from a family standpoint of view. It really resonates all around, and you get a different answer and a different growth from everybody, I believe, in step 2. So we want to hear, comment below, guys, and some of the stuff that we were talking about today. Send us an email at help@friendsandrecoverypodcast.com. Jeff Zeizel, I really want to thank you so much for the wonderful information you pass along every month to our listeners. It really does make a difference, and you're a wonderful, wonderful therapist, and we really appreciate the good stuff you're doing in this world, Jeff. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
And that, guys, stay sober, everybody.
Yeah. Cheers.
This concludes this episode of Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates, and enjoy free access to twice daily support meetings. Friends in Recovery, the Addiction Recovery Podcast, is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.